And just like that, we're alive. So welcome one and all. My name is David with the UDisc team. I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues here. You can see Jen and Andy on the call with me. And we have a few other colleagues on the UDisc team who are going to be monitoring the chat and helping to field questions throughout this webinar. We really appreciate you joining us. We'll just take care of a couple of quick housekeeping type things, set the expectations for what we're going to do here today. The webinar is going to cover UDisc events, our updated events platform to just give you a kind of a fill in on what's new. This is a major project, the UDisc events platform, that the UDisc team is really all hands on deck. Pretty much every single one of our team members is doing something to build this UDisc events platform. So it is something that we're constantly building. It is something that is not quite what we would consider finished yet. And that's why we are going to be giving you both an overview of what's new and also a preview of what's coming today. So Andy's going to take care of a preview of what's coming next for player registration in events. And I'm going to show you what we have so far in the UDisc events platform. This webinar covers what we're calling phase 2. So there was a previous webinar that we hosted about a month ago. That was the phase 1 webinar that covered everything from listing events to the events discovery page. And this is going to piggyback off of phase 1 to show you a little bit more detail in how registration, card management, round setup, and scoring and leaderboards will work in UDisc events. So our vision for UDisc events is to make this a really all-in-one, full suite platform that you can host your events on. And we're going to be able to show you a lot today, but your feedback and your questions are going to help guide this webinar as well. So like I said, our team is here to be active in the chat and in the questions with you. And we highly value your feedback. That's one of the best ways that we can learn as a team how we can make UDisc better to suit your needs. So I'm going to go ahead and share just a brief preview. Jen put together this really nice slideshow of what we're going to cover on the webinar today. So I'm going to go ahead and share that slideshow. And it's basically just going to cover who is here. So, you see myself, Jen, and Andy. Hannah and Owen don't have their cameras on right now, but they're going to help us with keeping up with questions. We're going to do our best to answer all the questions during the live session here today. But if we don't get to your questions during the webinar, we are also going to be following up with some emails after we wrap up today. So the follow-up emails will include more frequently asked questions that we can get you answers for, and the recording of the webinar. And one neat thing about this webinar platform is that the link that you used to join today's webinar is also the recording link. So once it wraps up, then it'll become the recording link to rewatch. So if you zone out for a while today, it's perfectly understandable. You'll be able to rewatch later on. My dog, Aria, that you can see there under the basket, she is inside. This is her nap time. But I have another couple animals floating around in my office that'll probably make a cameo. All right, a couple of things you can do during the webinar are you can use these fun emoji reactions. You can also ask questions in real time, and we're going to be monitoring and following. I'll be demonstrating my screen for a lot of it, so I might not notice some of the questions as they come in. That's why I have a handful of my talented team members here helping out with all the questions that might come in. And here's just a brief agenda for what we're going to cover. I think I gave this a quick overview, and then that's what we plan to cover here. A little bit of what's next and a preview. However, we also plan to host an additional webinar. A phase 3 webinar will probably be coming later this summer or maybe early fall. That's basically everything for the agenda. Before I move along to the next piece here of actually starting a demonstration, I'd like to just kick it over to Jen and Andy. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, I don't want to own the entire stage and the microphone the whole time. So Jen and Andy have helped me out a lot with setting up these webinars, and I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourselves. So Jen, I'll pass it to you next.
Well, we have some people that are being quite comical about your beard length. So thank you for the humor in the chat. We do have a question about when this will be released. So Andy or David, if you want to give any indications about when we're hoping this will be released.
And Andy is going to be doing the preview of kind of what's coming next for registration. We hesitate to put an exact date on things because, releasing the software, we have to do lots of testing and make sure that it actually is going to work as intended before we put it out to the masses. So we're not going to say it's on a specific date. But this, like I mentioned, is a top priority project that the whole UDisc team is actively working on. And so it is something that is going to be released in phases throughout the summer and throughout 2023 beyond the summer as well. The registration pieces that Andy is going to demonstrate in a little bit are going to be coming kind of sooner. Those are the really near-term release things. So probably late summer, I'll say, as a general anticipated release date for those registration pieces. And the rest of what I'm going to show is actually live in production. So those are going to be ready at your fingertips whenever you are ready to enjoy them. And I am growing out the beard a little longer than I typically do in the summertime. So the Gandalf comment, I have not heard that comparison before, but I love it. I'm going to have to get a few more gray hairs maybe. So I'll talk to my kids about how they can help me with that. Andy, anything else you'd like to say? Maybe you can introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Andy. I'm a member of the web team here at UDisc. So more focused on the actual building these products by hand rather than everything that David and Jen does, which is much more customer service related. So yeah, feel free to ask me any technical questions or any other questions you might have. And I'm excited to give a demo here shortly.
Rock and roll. Thanks, Andy and Jen. Awesome. And before I just plow through and start demonstrating this events platform, any questions I should answer right off the bat here? Great. Let's go ahead and share my screen, and we will share an event that I created called the Bobcat Championship. This is just for the sake of demonstration, but the Bobcat is a very difficult punching, heavily wooded course. And I created this event, including Andy and Jen as staff members, just to kind of give you a heads up of a few of the things that you can do on the UDisc events platform. In the upper right, you can see this manage button, and that will bring you to all the tools, all the admin tools for the tournament director or other event staff members. I'm not going to show every single one of the tools because we do have that phase 1 webinar where we covered a lot of this. So I'm going to skip right down to registration. You can see on the left-hand side, this event tools panel on the left are all your admin tools. So as the tournament director or assistant TD or a volunteer coordinator even, or any other staff member who's working on the event, if you get access to the event, which you can configure quite easily through this general page, then you'll be able to edit these registration details. Now, what you can see here is an opportunity to link where else you might be doing registration. So if you're actually running registration separately from UDisc, maybe you're doing it on Disc Golf Metrics or Disc Golf Scene or something like that, you can link over to your registration, have the registration opening and close times right here. And like I mentioned, Andy's actually going to show you a little bit more of how registration works or will work once we release this next piece, which is going to be the registration piece. Before I kick it over to Andy, I'm just going to briefly show you a couple of the really basic manual registration pieces. So I clicked on the divisions tab And I have a lot to demonstrate here, so please forgive me if I'm kind of breezing through really fast. I'm going to try to cover everything on this webinar. So I clicked on divisions, and I'm going to just show you how to add divisions. It's pretty straightforward. If you want to add PDGA divisions, you can add MPO, FPO. Maybe we're also going to have FA2 and FA3. You even have your age-protected divisions. And if you keep scrolling down, you have junior divisions and even these divisions that would just be based on PDGA player rating. So I've added those divisions, quite a few divisions now. If you end up not needing a division, maybe nobody signed up for MP40, you can delete the division really easily just by hitting this trash can icon. So are you sure you want to delete MP40? Yes. Unfortunately, none of the MP40 guys wanted to play the Bobcat Championship. The custom divisions is a great option for unsanctioned events specifically, and it's a really good option for in the future when UDisc events supports teams like a doubles tournament. Right now, there's a certain number of event formats that are kind of the basic event formats, such as singles, shotgun, and tee times formats. I'll show you those formats, and then maybe we'll open it up with a poll. We even have a polling functionality here within this webinar platform that will allow you to interact. So I'm gonna see if I can create a poll, and we have a couple of polls ready. So I'm actually going to skip to the event formats poll since I have already kind of previewed that. So I'll give folks an opportunity to vote on which event formats are you most looking forward to UDisc supporting. These are just a couple of ideas. I'm not promising you that a future version will support all of these event formats, but we're just trying to get a gauge of what you might be excited for in the future for UDisc events to support. Awesome. Glad to see some of those votes rolling in fast already. And you can see I added this amateurs division. You can add amateur, pro, a general division. Divisions are also optional, I should mention. So you don't need to have any divisions at all. So if you're running an unsanctioned event and everybody's in the same division, you don't even have to call it a division. Just have them register with no division. I'm going to go ahead to the players tab and briefly show you how to add individual players. And then I'm going to kick it over to Andy to show you what's coming next for a more in-depth event registration tool. So first, I'm going to show you just real quick how to add players. You see this plus add player button in the upper right. And again, I'm on the players tab on the left. So I'll add some players. I'll add myself. You can look your players up by their UDisc username and or by their PDGA number if it's associated with their account. If you have divisions, then you'll have to put the player in the correct division. MA1, I guess I can play up to MA1 for this event. And then if you'd like to also track whether or not the player has paid their registration fee, you can do that in this add player modal. So you can feel free to say whether or not they've paid. This is just a admin tool. It's not a public facing tool that'll show who hasn't paid their fees. But if you'd like to track if the player has paid or not, then feel free to do that with this has player paid functionality. In a future updated version of UDisc events, we do plan to support payments as kind of that all-in-one full suite platform, like I mentioned. This add more toggle at the bottom of the modal will keep this add player modal open. And by modal, I mean this like little mini screen that pops up where I'm adding the player. If you hit this add player, add more toggle, then it'll keep it open so that I'm not just adding myself, I'm adding another player next. So I'll add Jen. Most of the UDisc team, we have these neat, easy usernames to figure out because it's just our name. So I'll add Jen into FA2, and I'll say she hasn't paid yet just to demonstrate what that looks like. I'll add a couple more players. So here's Josh. I'll put Josh in MA1 with me, and I'll say he is also paid. We'll add Matt, and then we'll just go ahead and show you what that looks like once I've added these players. So I'll put Matt in MPO. He's pretty good. But I'll say he has not paid yet. Once you're done adding players, you could untoggle add more, and it'll just bring you to this overview. You can see a little drop-down menu on the right-hand side of each division, which will show you who's paid. You'll have this little $ icon, which is that has the player paid. It's green for if they have paid, and if they haven't, like Matt here, it's gray. If you need to edit a player, hit that little diagonal pencil icon, and you can say, okay, now he's paid. So that's how you would be able to edit it, and you'll see it becomes green, that little $ icon. Or if somebody had to drop, unfortunately, you could hit this little 3 dots icon, and you could remove the player from the event. I'll let Jen stay on the registration here, so I won't remove you right now, Jen. But that's how you could remove somebody if they dropped after you had added them to registration. So again, pretty straightforward. This is just an admin tool for the tournament director to be able to add players manually to the event. And Andy is going to show off what we have planned for player registration in more depth. Before I kick it over to Andy, are there any questions that are relevant to what I've showed here on this manual piece of registration, or should I just stop sharing and jump into the preview of what's next for event registration?
Thanks, David. We have a couple of people, including Nathan, that asked about the ability to import registration. So if you could just speak to that, and then I know some people are excited to see what Andy has to show too.
Wonderful. Right now, it's just this individual player adding functionality. So we don't have an import tool like to drop a spreadsheet in, for example, at this point in time. However, like I mentioned, part of the reason we're doing this webinar as we continue to work on the UDisc events platform is to gauge interest in what would make your lives easier as both people who play in events and as people who run events. So if you say, hey, in a bulk import for player registration where we just have to drop a spreadsheet in with players' UDisc username or their PDGA number would be super easy and would make my life a lot easier and me more likely to use the UDisc events platform. We take that feedback really seriously. So we would love to hear from you. If that's something that's a kind of a deal breaker for you, we'd love to hear that too. So right now what you see is what you get, and Andy's going to show you a little bit more about what we have planned. But yeah, the bulk import tool, we've definitely considered that. And so it is something that's still floating around the UDisc team members' minds as a potential, something that we maybe could add for a future updated version. Again, I hesitate to make promises about exact features or release dates or anything like that. But I can definitely see the value in being able to just drop everybody in all at once. For now, this add more tab is a good friend to you as an event director if you are adding players. I definitely recommend using the add more tab because then it'll just keep that modal open so you don't have to keep clicking back out to see this overview of the divisions. You'll just get to kind of add everybody in one fell swoop, although it is person by person. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that I can give Andy an opportunity to share his. And don't want to ignore any other questions. I know you said there was a handful of questions, Jen. So anything else we should address before we do move on to Andy's part?
I think some things will be clarified when Andy shows what's going on. People are really excited for that. So we'll wait until Andy shows us.
Awesome. Thank you. Andy, the floor is yours.
Sweet. Let's do it. All right, as I can see, there's a lot of questions surrounding registration. So we've been working really hard on registration. This is not a feature that is currently available. To be clear, I'm just showing what we've been working on, quick demo. You wouldn't be able to find these tools right now, but they should be coming reasonably soon. And yeah, as you might imagine, registration is a very natural extension of adding players by hand. It can be pretty tedious to add, just a ton of people by hand. So let's go into registration and discuss what it currently does, what it's not going to do, and some of our future extensions on what we plan it to do. So to enable our UDisc registration, it's pretty simple. When you go to the registration tab, as you can see, there's a new option here that says, I will be using UDisc to register players. All you have to do, hit yes on that, configure your registration opens and close dates. And yeah, I saw a comment about time zones. Don't worry, we handle all of that for you. We will list the time zone here just to be super clear about it, because sometimes it can be confusing if you're in a different time zone than the event you're managing. So it should all be pretty clear here. All right, let's save that and see what options we unlock. So as soon as you have enabled UDisc registration, you will get a couple more options here. You will be able to specify a player count. And what this means is this just a cap on the number of players that will be able to attend an event. So if you want, let's say, you don't want this many people to be registered per division, it's pretty easy to either set a total number cap or a cap per division. So let's go through and do that right now. I'm going to set 2 for every single one of these. And you can set caps to lower or higher than the amount of players currently registered. This is not a big deal. If there's 3 people registered, you don't want any more to register, you set it to 2. No biggie. All right. And so you might be thinking, what does this limit on player count really mean? What is this actually going to do? So currently, this is going to prevent anyone else from registering after the number of people has reached the amount you've specified. And a very natural extension to this, you might be like, is there a waitlist feature? After the cap is reached, can people register for our waitlist? Currently, no, but that is our next feature we are working on. So hopefully that will be out very shortly after we put out registration. And that will allow you to do a whole bunch of cool things. There's a lot of stuff with our waitlist that we're planning, and hopefully it's going to be really great. All right. Additionally, we allow the ability to collect some data about people when they're registering. So we will automatically collect the player's name and email. This comes from UDisc. We have this data, and the division is also something that we will collect. The user will have to select a division when they register, and you'll be able to see that when I go over to this form and show you what it looks like for the players. So let's just say we want phone number and address. We also have big plans for this form in the future. We have, when we've integrated it with payments, we will be able to set, like, let's say you might be able to add a question that says like, oh, what size shirt do you want? And there will be a price associated with that as well. So yeah, we have pretty big plans for this. All right, let's save that because we should probably do that. So if there's any other questions about, if there's no other questions about this form here, I'm going to go over and show you what this will look like from the public page view.
Hey, Andy, one quick question from Ray. Once multi-pools are supported in a future version of UDisc events, would you be able to add a limit, a player limit for the pool rather than the division?
Yes, that is, I believe, planned. In addition to waitlist, our multi-pool support is the next big thing we're going to do. So hopefully those features will be complete pretty soon, and you'll be able to run a full multi-pool event through this platform. And yeah, all the options that are like per division, if there's ever a per division option, there should also be a per pool option. And yeah, I see some questions about teaser size, a spot. Yeah, we're planning on adding like custom fields here. So you'll be able to say, you'll be able to make your own like multi-select answers. You'll be able to like create checkboxes. It'll look a bit like Google Forms. So should be a lot of good ways to cover that. And yeah, to be clear, this registration platform is a standalone. So this is not going to like import from any other site. If you're using somewhere else, we're currently not linking to any of those. That's not in our short-term plan because we have other more important features we're planning on putting out first. And I see some questions about multi-pool. Basically, all a pool is people playing a different layout. So if you have two different groups, let's say your MPO field is going to play a slightly longer course and the FPO field is going to play at an entirely different course or something, that would be a great option for a multi-pool event. And yeah, no, we do not sync with the PGA event page, Oliver. There's no syncing here. Yeah, as I've said, this is a standalone platform. So yeah, our plan is to make an all-in-one version of the platform before we have any integrations. We're not sure what our plan is with that. All right, let's get to the public page for this. I'll answer some more questions later. This might provide some clarity. So once registration is enabled, there will be this little registration box here. And as you can see, the time zone worked correctly. I'm in Salt Lake City, so I'm in Mountain Daylight Time. And you can see I set it to 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 6 p.m. here. So don't worry about that stuff. Let's go and register. Let's see what this looks like. So you can see here, it's very clear what user you are, and this should automatically collect the data here. You're able to see all of the divisions pretty easily. I currently cannot register for MPO. Again, once we have waitlist, there will be a way to register for MPO here. This option won't be disabled. So I'm going to register for MJ18. Don't tell them, I might be sandbagging. And you can see all of our registration form options are also present here. So, I got to provide all these pieces of data I was supposed to provide. Let's type in an address too. This is optional, but I'm going to do it just to do it. Am I doing it just because I spent a long time on that autocomplete? Maybe. And I'm going to hit confirm registration. As you can see, a user, once they register, will receive this message. They'll have the ability to edit their registration, and they'll also get an email saying that they are confirmed, which I just got. Cool. So yeah, users easily have the ability to edit registration. They will not be able to switch their division after they register, but they can change all of this information here. They can also unregister for events. And yes, so I see a question about the registration form. Yeah, you do need an account to be able to register. So if you're not logged in here, this is going to show a little login or create account button, and you will need to create a UDisc profile. Not a UDisc Pro or anything, but you just need to create a profile before you can register. And yeah, that's most of the stuff I wanted to show off. A couple more questions that people might have are, how does this version integrate with payments? And currently, it does not. So that's, again, a future extension. But right now, these registered people will all show up in your managed dashboard. So as you can see in my players dashboard, I registered for Junior 18. And you'll have all the same options to track whether players have paid here as well. Are there any other questions, David and Jen?
Yeah, Andy, can you answer from Levi? He asked about the possibility of setting up registration stages and if there's the ability to make registration live for certain divisions or certain pools.
Yeah, we don't have that right now, although that is a good idea. We have discussed that somewhat extensively, and that is in our plan. So we've been thinking about that, but it won't be in our initial release of this product.
And then a couple other questions about, can the TD or admin change the division on behalf of a player? Like if they reached out and said, hey, actually, I need to move up to MPO, could you do that for them?
Indeed. From this players page, you are not restricted by any of the rules. So I could easily switch to any of these divisions here. The TD has the ability to switch all of these divisions, but players cannot do it themselves. I see a question about divisions. You might not need to set up divisions, but I think you always need at least one division to register in its current version. And worst case, you just create a custom division that's Gen for general or something. Let's see, I see one more question about a user to change their own registration. We have that disabled for now. As you can see in the registration form that I showed you, let me go back to it. This is where we would allow a user to change their own division. But right now there's some concerns about that. We're not entirely sure what we want to do. So we have that disabled, and that is a thing someone must contact the TD for. If we ever do change that, it'll be super easy to see here because this option will just become enabled.
And Andy, we have a few people asking a similar question about export ability. Once people are registered, is there an ability to export all players and their information?
I don't believe we have that, although that could be something that might be nice. Yeah, we have no export. I think it would be on this page somewhere. Maybe we just put in an export button. Currently, we don't have that, but that could be a great future extension. Yeah, I see a question about registration for doubles. On our roadmap, we have our team support a little bit down the line after we finish our waitlist and multi-pool support. But when we revisit that, that will also address these pages here. So I believe someone will be able to register for a whole team. So just reading through some of these questions here. Are all UDisc event registrations public? For now, yes. Everyone will see the same thing. There's no restriction on who makes them public or not. If you want to add people by hand, you can do that through the players page, but everything on the registration page will be public. So yeah, every user will be seeing the same thing on this page. But we hope between this players page, the ability to add players here, and the registration form, specifically once we have the waitlist as well, we should cover most of the cases for streamlining registration. All right, I think I'm going to pass it back over to David, unless there's anything else anyone wants from me.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I can answer a couple more questions that I see flowing in. Really appreciate all the questions coming in. Nathan, all of the attendees are muted right now, so that questions where you're typing in is the best way to ask questions to the UDisc team. That just helps to minimize all the noise. We have almost 200 people attending this webinar, which is pretty amazing. Multiple round events is something that we are covering on this very webinar. So I'm going to get to that in just a moment. As far as blocking players, to restrict them to only be able to register for MJ18 if they're actually 18 or under, we don't have a way to do that right now. In UDisc, the UDisc app is not collecting players' gender identity or their age or that kind of personal identifying information is not collected in the UDisc app. So people are able, like you just saw Andy, who's 20 something, just register for MJ18. I know, big no, but we just want to be clear that that is something that we don't have a technical way to block Andy from doing that, other than the TD could then move him up and put him in MPO where he belongs. Andy, if you don't mind, yep, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. Stopping sharing your screen, and we'll keep the questions flowing on, and I will go ahead and share my screen to show you what's next, which is going to be setting up the rounds and the cards, and registration is great and all, but I think this is the really fun stuff that we're about to launch into. So I know we didn't get to quite every question, but please keep the questions coming and we will get to as many as we possibly can. I'm really happy to see such an active, engaged audience here today. All right, back to the Bobcat Championship. We didn't really specifically call this out, but you can also see this cool filled in number of hours since when the event registration opened, which is just kind of a cool way to see how fast, how much demand you had for each of these divisions. And I added a couple other players while Andy was demonstrating his screen. So that's why the numbers are beefed up just a tiny bit. Like I added Ash here to FPO, who's another one of our colleagues on the UDisc design and web development team. All right. I just wanted to, again, shout out my team members here who are helping with all these questions. It's really tough to keep up with all the questions while we're running the demo. So thank you again to Hannah, Teresa, and the rest of our team, Markel, who are not, they don't have their cameras on, but they are here and answering a lot of the questions as they come on. All right. Scoring. We did that quick poll near the beginning of the webinar here today where we asked what kind of event formats you might be most excited to see in the future. And these are just a brief overview of what's supported. So you can see at the top of the scoring tab, I will be using UDisc to score your event. Yes, we will be using UDisc to score this event in today's demo. And so you can see, oh, Teams is not yet supported. Like Andy mentioned, after multi-pool support and these registration pieces are up and running in UDisc, then we're going to be working on a few of the next things, such as doubles, triples. That's what we mean by Teams play format. And I'll make this one a tee times event. Don't worry, I'll also show you how the shotgun looks. You know, a flex start format would probably be on our future roadmap. So if you are running a flex start format, the UDisc Leagues platform is perfectly acceptable as an option. You can always use UDisc Leagues, especially if it is like a casual flex start that you want players to be able to self-register and put themselves on cards. UDisc Leagues only supports one-round events. So the UDisc events platform that I'm showing off today is a little bit better for a multi-round event because then you'll have a cumulative score on your leaderboard across multiple rounds. But UDisc Leagues is fine for a really casual, you know, flex start, one-round event. It's a really good option that is already live in production. So there's a couple of differences between UDisc Leagues and UDisc events. In general, the UDisc events platform will give the tournament director a lot more control over who's registering, which card they're on, the specifics. You have some more meat, some more different types of formats that are supported, and a lot more of these types of admin tools when it comes to round and card management in the UDisc events platform. Whereas on the UDisc Leagues, it's really streamlined to be very simplified so that the players can just put themselves on cards and get out to whatever hole they're starting on. So UDisc Leagues is cool in that way. All right, scorecard stats. I recommend keeping this on unless it's a funky format event, like if you're using mulligans, for example, then that will disable the stats from this event from impacting anyone's actual profile stats on their UDisc account. And I'm just going to move right along and go to rounds. I am going to kind of go through these a little bit quickly. So I'll stop while I'm creating rounds. I'll ask if there's any other questions that I should address before just continuing to move along here. And I'll set up this first round because it's really straightforward. I don't think I really need to talk through these things. I think all y'all know how to set a start time for a round.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions coming in, David, and I just want to thank everyone again, and we're doing our best to answer them, but if we don't answer them, then we will get back to you. And just want to say that too, that the feedback that's coming in, we actually are taking that to heart and writing a lot of that down. So keep the feedback coming and know that we're updating things as we're building this, just like Andy showed you. So we're excited to release some other things. Thanks, David.
Awesome. This is a bit of a do as I say, not as I do moment. You can see that I have this first round set up for 19 minutes from now. I do not recommend waiting until the last minute to set up your your event details and set up your rounds and even card management. You don't have to even wait for the day of the event. You can do these types of things in advance before your event. I highly recommend that, especially if you have to create a new tournament-specific layout, for example. Then we recommend give a day or two at least advance notice, because the UDisc team has a review and approval phase that we're happy to approve event-specific layouts. If you're, adding a cool new pin location for hole 18 and you want to map that out on UDisc, that's awesome. But it is something that we recommend doing in advance of your event. Don't wait until you're about to tee off before you set up these rounds. I'm just showing you that you can. Our platform is capable of it, but it's not recommended. So like I just kind of alluded to, I'm going to set up the second round as well. Don't wait until after the first round is done to configure your second round. And when you have a smart layout, like the Bobcat layout over here at the Woods at Beauty Hill Bobcat course, we'll also give you a little preview of how long it takes players on average to finish that layout. That's based on activity in the app. This is obviously a really fast 18-hole layout. It's super short putter course. But please keep in mind that, especially if you have cards of 4 or more at your event, tournament play tends to be pretty slow compared to your average casual round. And so that 39 minutes is probably an underestimate for a tournament play here at the Bobcat course. All right, and then I'm just kind of scrolling down on the left-hand side. If you keep scrolling down, you'll keep finding more and more fun tools to play with. So let's go to cards next, and I'm going to hit round 1 to configure cards for the first round. So I already set up the round. I could edit those details, but I just showed you how to do those, so I'm not going to belabor that point. Then I can hit edit rules for the first round, how we create cards for the first round. Let's show you how that works. Oh, I think I accidentally went back on my browser. All right, so first round, tee times, like I said, most commonly tee times are going to be starting on hole 1. If your course flows better, that it actually starts on a different hole, you can choose a different hole for your tee times start. How many minutes between card starts? You can see we have really common intervals and common card sizes selected as the default, but you can set up the gaps to be however long between cards as you'd like. You can have 5-person cards, 3-person cards, 4 is most common. I'll make these 3-person cards and we'll breeze through it. And you can just see kind of an overview. I've registered 8 people through just that players tab there. Now, because I have some really small divisions, like some 1-person divisions, maybe some 2-person divisions, and I want to make sure I have 3 players on each card, or at least on the average card, we would definitely recommend that you have 10 players from different divisions be on the same card as yes. And like in Europe, for example, it's pretty common that you can have mixed division cards for the first round. So you might have an MPO player playing with an FPO player playing with an MJ18 player, everybody all together on the same card. It works great, especially if you're all playing the same layout. And so that is what mixing players from different divisions on the same card. That's what yes means. If you would prefer that each card only contains players from one division and there's no mixed division cards, that's what no means in this option. So, that's up to your discretion as the tournament director. But if you have some cards of like 1 player, then I definitely recommend, some divisions of like one player registered for MP60, then you might have this as yes. Feel free to mix that player so that you have a card that's not just the one MP60 guy playing by himself. And then change order. This is more relevant for when you are not allowing mixed division cards. If you'd like, for example, the FA2 division to get the earliest tee times, that's what the division order means. The MJ18 guys, they're used to getting up early for school anyway, so you can put them in the early morning, and you can feel free to configure the division order that way. If you're mixing divisions onto cards, then the division order isn't as impactful. And for that first round, I definitely recommend randomizing players. You will still have the opportunity to manually put people on specific cards. You don't have to take the randomized players' cards and automatically publish them. And I'll show you that randomizing players, it just will save you some time. Otherwise, you could do everything manually, but I'm just going to show you how randomizing works. You get this overview. We're not going to make a card of 2. So with 8 players registered, it's still just going to be 2 cards, whether you choose 3 players on a card or 4 players on a card. It's just going to show 2 cards of 4 for that 8-player count. All right, so the card settings are good to go, and I'm going to go ahead and hit generate cards anyway. Yes, registration is still open. You have the opportunity to configure when registration closes. I have not closed registration yet because I wanted to demonstrate how to register people during this demo, but I'm just going to go ahead and generate cards because I know everybody who's actually planning to play the event is registered. All right, so the cards are generated for the first round. Here is a preview. Josh and Matt are playing with Ash and Tyler. I'm playing with Andy, Jenna, and Scott. Awesome. I love that card. And you can see the mixed divisions working well here on these cards, which I allowed. If you hit this Edit Cards button in the upper right, the little diagonal pencil icon is your opportunity to move things around. So if you want to add a new card and you do actually want to have a 130 card or something like that, that's what this Add New Card button does. If you'd like to add a new player, that's what this plus Add Player button would allow you to do. So let's see if I can add Hannah, for example. Oh, she's not registered for the event. You can only add players who are actually registered. If I want to move somebody from one card to another, then that's what this move to card will allow you to do. So let's move Josh over to the 115 card. Now you can see I have 5 people on this 115 card, 3 people on this 1 o'clock card. Let's say Scott gives the TD a call and says, hey, I'm not sure if I'm actually going to make it in time here. Something came up this morning at home. Hit mark as unassigned, which again, through those little 3 dots icon next to the players division. And then you see Scott drops onto this bench area, unassigned players. So until he shows up or lets us know that he is going to make it, you can leave him on that bench area. He won't be on a card until you hit those 3 dots. And then you can say, okay, nice. He's going to make it just in time for that 1 p.m. tea time. So we'll plop him on there with Matt, Tyler, and Ash. So a lot of the best disc golfers on the UDisc team are all on that 1 o'clock card. All right, that's how you can edit cards in a nutshell. At the very bottom of this editing cards page, you see publish round. And that has a little arrow. The arrow signifies that there's 2 options. So that's a little arrow is a drop-down menu that allows you to either just publish the round or publish the round and send push notifications to the players. The push notification goes to the player's phone. It's already connected to their UDisc account. So that's how we can send them a push notification. And the push notification just gives some basic information that tells the players what's their tee time, since this is a tee times event, who's on their card, and then what's their starting hole. So it'll say hole 1, tee time 1 o'clock or 1:15 for those who it's 1:15. And you can see the round has been published. I got my push notification. It's not the best thing to show, but you could see the push notification there on my phone, hopefully. I am starting a round. I'm on the 1:15 card. That's what my push notification says, and it's at the Woods at Beauty Hill Bobcat course. So if you need to edit the round even after publishing it, you still can. So you can hit this, I need to edit this round, and it'll allow you to unpublish the round. That'll take these scorecards off of the players' UDisc accounts, so they no longer see their round in the app. And so you could do that if you needed to take somebody off of a card, for example. But you can also do that kind of things from the leaderboard page. So if somebody needs to DNF, you don't have to unpublish the round to DNF somebody. All right. That is the setup for round one. That's pretty much everything I wanted to show on the setup for the first round. I will pause briefly for see if there's any relevant questions that I should address before I show you a little bit of how to set up round two.
Thanks, David. We have Oliver, and this question has been asked a few times, so probably good to answer out loud. Just verifying that people need a UDisc account in order to register for an event, and then any suggestions that we have for juniors, and making sure that if a junior is attending your event, how to get them set up.
Yep. So you do need a UDisc account to be registered for a UDisc event. That's how we know who's playing and how we can send push notifications and all that good stuff. You don't need a UDisc Pro account. You can use a free trial account. And so all you need is an email there to sign up for the UDisc app to get that free trial. Even if you have an expired account, as long as you're logged in, you can participate in a UDisc event. And so that players tab is the best way to register players currently. And like Andy showed, we have a lot more planned for future event registration tools, something specific for registering a player who doesn't already have a UDisc account. That's a good idea that we will consider for a potential future updated version of the registration tools.
Awesome. And then one last question about, and Andy, hopefully you can answer this, just about the release date for all of this. Just verifying one more time. I think people hopped in later and maybe didn't hear at the beginning.
Yeah, so right now for this, David is actually on udisc.com, and he's actually using our system. So this is all currently available. David, is this available for just TDs, or is this everyone? I'm actually not 100% sure.
These tools, you'll have to be the UDisc event admin to use all of these tools that I'm demonstrating right now. But the average player is not even going to see this event tools panel on the left-hand side. It's just for the UDisc event admins. So you don't need to be the TD necessarily. You could have your assistant TD do it, or you could have the volunteer coordinator or another staff member do it, as long as you configure them as having permissions in the UDisc event. So you can do that via the general page, and that's how you'd be able to add admins. Also, when you're listing your event, you're prompted to add the admins who will have access to this page. And as we continue to build out this platform, we're going to open it up so that these tools become more accessible to everybody. So this is something that is really immediately available right now and is going to continue to become more and more available as it becomes a more fully fleshed out, full suite platform for events. Will surface these tools and these events even in more places. But right now you can see on udisc.com/events, which is also the little events tab at the top of udisc.com. You can see events on our live in production events platform. And same goes for the events tab in the mobile app. If you just hit events, then you'll see UDisc events, and you can see some real ones as well. All right, we're getting close to the top of our planned hour-long webinar. So I'm gonna make sure that we cover configuring the second round first. You can't generate cards yet because the first round hasn't been completed yet. So the rules are usually based on the leaderboard. Who's at the top of the leaderboard get on the lead card, for example. But I can show you how to configure those rules. So here you go. Players will be assigned based on the following rules. Let's edit them. And I'm going to show you how the shotgun start works. I wouldn't recommend doing a mixed format event with 1 round tee times, 1 round shotgun. I definitely don't recommend that. I'm just doing this for the sake of demonstration to get this all covered in the same webinar. So here's the shotgun start tools. We'll again ask you how many players are on a typical card, and then on which holes should the players start. So it doesn't have to be hole 1 and hole 10. That spaces out these cards nicely. But if the flow of your course actually would work better, or maybe you have certain cards who don't want to walk all the way out to hole 10, then you can just you choose whichever holes make the most sense for you. And we even have these cool select odd or select even buttons that'll allow you to set up a shotgun start on specific holes without having to click each individual hole. And then you see this little warning like, we only need 2 cards because I've only set up 8 players on this event registration. So you don't need to have 11 holes selected. 2 is perfectly acceptable. So we'll have players start on holes 2 and 11. Again, I'm going to allow players from different divisions to be on the same card. And then I just want to show you, how do you want players to be arranged? You can keep players on the same card. If you want to have all the same groupings for the first round as you have for the second round, that makes things easy. You know who you're playing with. You could randomize if you want, but that's not very common. Most commonly, you are going to see players arranged by score or by the PDGA score, which is just a tiebreaker difference. So the PDGA score is breaking ties based on PDGA number. Or hot round after, in between second and third round, for example. The score is the UDisc rules, which breaks ties based on honors, which is basically the same as the T-box order. So if you got the eagle on hole 18, then you're going to win that tiebreaker to make the lead card over the person who you're tied with who only got a regular birdie on hole 18. So that's what I mean by honors and the T-box order. That's what the UDisc rules are for breaking ties. It's not based on PDGA number, but based on honors. All right, I saved the rules. And now you can see the rules are configured. It's going to be a shotgun start for round 2. Really funky event format. And one last time, I just want to reiterate, I don't recommend doing tee times for 1 round and shotgun start for another round. That could be pretty confusing to players. However, it is something that we would technically support in this platform. We're trying to support as many different event formats as we possibly can. That's a really rare multi-format type, but it is something that you could configure at the round level rather than at the event level if you really wanted to do that. All right. Last thing that I am going to show you is a leaderboard, just to kind of give you an example of what the scores look like when they're all filled out. I'm not going to have my team members rush to input scores here for this first round here at the Bobcat Championship. I'm just going to show you a different event. That's an actual event that was run on the UDisc events platform recently. And if there's any other questions we should answer in the meantime, then now is a good time. So I'll mute myself, switch over to my other screen to share you the leaderboard from this recently completed event, and we'll pause to see if there's any other questions we should address.
Yeah, thanks, David. I just wanted to clarify, because a few people are saying they're trying to access some of these features. This is not available today quite yet. So some of the things that David is mentioning are available in a beta version, and few people are asking if you can get access to that. You can if you would like, and you can email in at help@udisc.com. But right now, that's not quite available yet, and our team is hoping that it will be in the next couple of days. And then one quick question, David, from Daniel about the ability to create a cut line for the second or third round.
And that's something that we plan to support as well for events with a cut. Pretty rare that it would be for the second round, but you'd be able to configure the cut for which percentage or which number of players are going to make the cut. And then most commonly you'd be able to say, and also include ties at that cut line. Or you could say, don't include ties. It's a strict number of players. So you do get, you'll have those abilities for a cut line. to my knowledge, I think that is also a future planned feature is adding cuts. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. One last thing is just showing this actual event that happened about a week ago. So this is a glitch-only tournament, a fun format, but it does a nice job as a demonstration of filling out a schedule, which includes when you check in and get your event glitch, when the rounds are happening, they have lunch and another players meeting. Everything is really filled out on the schedule. So this is really nice. They even have the awards scheduled for, the 4 p.m. after the event wraps up. So that schedule is another piece that you can give more information to your field. And then they have the players registered. So, you have all these players who are registered, and you can use the drop down to see who's in which division. And what I really wanted to show you is the scores. So here's the leaderboard. I was already looking at round 2, but this is a multi-round event. So I just wanted to show you everybody's on the same leaderboard. You have kind of a preview of who's at the top of each division. And then you could even just see all for a specific division. So here's the casual division, which had a lot of players and their scores. And then we're not going to give away who actually won it when you're looking at the round 1 leaderboard. If you go to round 2, then you can see, wow, Francisco actually made a really nice push and ended up winning this one with a great second round. So that's how the leaderboard works. You have a round 1 and a round 2 tab. And if you'd like to see who is playing on which card, you can even do it that way. That's what this group by card toggle allows you to do, is see, who was playing together for each round. So that's the leaderboard. This is the completed event. So this leaderboard is already finished. On the manage page, you also do have an admin side of the leaderboard. So again, that's under this event tools. I want to make sure I'm being clear. There's leaderboard. And that's where you'd be able to do things like DNF a player, or even adjust their scores, or give them a 2-throw penalty for a courtesy violation or something like that. That's what this little diagonal pencil icon will allow you to do on the leaderboard within the event admin tools. So this works kind of similarly to the leaderboard admin tools in UDisc leagues, if you're familiar with that, just with a couple other options. So you even have some card options. If you need to move a player around, you can do that straight from the leaderboard. This round is already complete, and that's why these card actions are disabled. This event, like I mentioned, it happened about a week ago, but I just wanted to show you this leaderboard because it's filled out, and it's a nice opportunity to see kind of what the leaderboard tools look like.
And David, we have a couple questions about what the card population looks like. And Andy, you might be able to answer this too. Just what it looks like in the app for players. Are they notified that their card has been created? Where will they see it in the app on the day of the event?
Yeah, so when you create a scorecard, as you can see here, each one will have a time associated with it. And so as a player, if I look before the event, but once my score has been created, or my scorecard has been created, I'll be able to see that I have a scorecard with everyone else on my card, and it will say locked. It will then unlock at the time the event starts, and I'll be able to add scores just like a normal UDisc or a scorecard.
And similar question, Andy, where would everyone see the leaderboard? Is it kind of the same features as the leagues? People are asking, like, is there the same kind of like leaderboard indicator, like tap feature within your scorecard, or where are those going to be visible?
Yeah, there's actually 2 places to see this. So one, if you'll be able to navigate to the event, as you can see, David clicked over to the scores tab, which will be available for everyone. Additionally, when you're in the app, there will be a little leaderboard icon that you can click that will also bring you to a version of this page that is friendly for your phone.
Yep. And you can also see this little share button in the upper right here will allow you to send the event so that people can, follow it, follow the leaderboard at home for friends and family members. It's a nice way to vicariously enjoy this disc golf tournament. All right. There's still some really great questions, some that we don't necessarily have an answer for yet. Like Martin, I love your question about how do we plan to follow the new PDGA rule about all 4 players must take score. I don't know that we necessarily have a specific answer for that yet, but we would definitely love to have some players keeping score on UDisc. That's the plan for UDisc events, to have players be able to keep score through UDisc, even everybody on the same card be able to keep score, is something that we see as a potential future update that would be well aligned with that new PDGA rule. As we're starting to kind of wrap up here on our webinar time, I know we're slightly over time. I just want to thank everybody again for all your thoughtful questions and for joining here today. It's really awesome to have such an engaged audience, and really happy to see some international folks who have even done some UDisc live events with us here. So it's really cool to see such a diverse group here today. Thanks again to my team members, not just Jen and Andy, but everybody behind the scenes as well for helping pull this all together. And we are going to be following up. So I know we didn't get to every single question during the live webinar today, but we are going to be following up with some more FAQ answers and the recording to this webinar as well. I know we ripped through a lot of functionalities pretty fast on this. And so you're definitely welcome to rewatch and slow it down. And I believe we're going to end up putting this on probably on the UDisc YouTube channel at some point in the future as well. But for now, the link that you used to join the actual webinar is going to become the webinar recording link as well. I think that's pretty much everything I have for this webinar. Jen or Andy, would you like to say anything else before we call it a show?
Yeah, thank you everyone for showing up and asking questions. We really appreciate this, and we're building these tools for the TDs, so it really helps when you guys provide feedback. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Hopefully you're excited about the new features, and hopefully you'll be able to use them soon, and they'll help you run things more smoothly, save you some time. Appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Andy said. It's always fun seeing so much feedback and so much excitement in the chat. So really appreciate you being here and just joining us for these webinar series. And we're excited to continue this and keep building some fun features for you. Thanks, everyone.
And one last thing before we call it, help@udisc.com. That's HELP@udisc.com. is always a great place to get in touch with the UDisc team, myself and Jen and the rest of our colleagues. That email address will really reach our team. So if you have questions, please don't be shy to reach out to help@udisc.com, and we'll be more than happy to field any feedback, help walk you through some more of what we have planned for what's coming next. And then once we have things published and in a good place that you can play with it, we're going to make a big splash probably on social media. We'll make it very clear, and we will have some future webinars as well where we cover what is new as far as those next forthcoming functionalities. So keep an eye out for more from the UDisc team. Thanks again, everybody, for your time here today. Really appreciate all the sweet questions. And Jonathan, as far as other openings on the team, keep your eyes out on the jobs tab. If you go to udisc.com, you can see jobs, and our team is always looking for talented people. So please feel free to take a look at any potential job openings as well. Really appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking, and we'll talk to y'all next time. So thanks again, everyone.